go.
Greg, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Greg.
Yeah.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Bob.
Hey, you got it.
Hi there, sorry, it's been a challenge to get this thing started. I started, believe it or not, 5 minutes before. It's taken me 15 minutes just to get this meeting started. All right, with that said, we have a quorum, so we'll start the meeting at 8:10. We are going to suspend any other activity for tonight. And go straight into is Henry gonna make it or?
Henry will be here, but he will be 20 minutes late.
Okay.
But we have a method to start,
Okay,
which he's agreed to if you'll, and we'll hold.
take it away. Mary will lead us in from here.
This is awesome, everybody. Thank you so much for being available. As you remember, we had a timeline for our late ordinance revisions, and we're behind, but we're catching up quickly. And I'd like to give you a little bit of background as to where we are, what we're going to do tonight, and next steps. Okay. As you recall, we sent them. They were sent, give or take, December 28th in that area after the holidays. Deep has reviewed them and reached out to us, and Henry, myself, and Mark Walter had a meeting via Zoom with his name is Tim Delgado, an environmental scientist, and the head of law enforcement for the boating division, Pete Francis, on Monday, March 18th. It was an incredibly productive meeting. It was a very upbeat meeting. And since then, I've had one additional conversation with Mr. Delgado that is in the same vein. They want to help us do what we want to do. And they're even providing us, I think, with some ways to be able to keep most of the things that we put in with some revisions. So tonight's approach is what Henry and I would like to do, and Henry will be here in 20 minutes. He wants me, and we both agreed, we've given you what has been the red line, the changes since you saw the revisions last December. We'd like to go through tonight and review definitions, give you the rationale if you have any questions on any definition, review suggested revisions from Deep that Henry and I have captured in the red line. And then when Henry gets here, we do also want to review one recommendation for a deletion that we think still can be a win-win, but we need to explain why Deep is suggesting that we delete part of an ordinance that came into being in 1992. Before I kick off, does anyone have any questions or comments to what I just said in terms of our approach? Boom, 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 definitions, what are we going to revise? And hopefully when Henry gets here,
I have a kind of question, because the paperwork here starts with Article 2. What happened to Article 1?
Well, this has always been, for whatever reason, how the articles have been numbered since 1992. Okay, so great question. Any other questions? Are we good to go?
Yep.
I'd like to refer to Article 2, which is now called Vessels on Columbia Lake Town Ordinance. Okay? That is a very general term that is a Connecticut boating enforcement manual term. Let me tell you, every definition that is starred that you will see in all the ordinances are consistent, and we put this in the definitions, with the State of Connecticut Boating Safety Enforcement Manual, which Deep provided us 2 days before we met them. It's 164 pages. But we get it, we got the drift, we got the meaning. And they have been very helpful in saying, look, let's be consistent with all definitions. What's in the DEEP manual is taught in safety boating, is taught in the personal watercraft certification approach. So let's be consistent. We're asking every town to do this. So you will see the starred ones are being suggested by DEEP not to change. Be consistent with the state, okay? DEEP accepted everything in terms of definitions relative to the lake, qualified non-resident, qualified temporary resident, etc. We put in the term vessels because that term includes anything and everything that's a watercraft except the seaplane. And vessels, generally speaking, okay, in these ordinances, help us understand what we can and maybe cannot have on the lake. So are there any questions on Article 2 under definitions? Motorboat, personal watercraft, jetted articular vessel, sailboat, sailboard are all DEEP definitions.
That's okay with me.
Awesome, thank you for the thumbs up. As we go on, vessels for commercial use and recreational vessels are our terms that DEEP helped us. They quote unquote won't write it for us, but they make suggestions to it. And what they wanted to ensure was, yes, you can have no commercial vessels on your lake, but you may want to someday. And that may be something where if you had to dredge your lake, for example. So we just updated that to allow specifically approved. Operate is one of their terms. We put in the safe boating certificate, and this still has to be massaged a little bit with DEEP, just to let people know that legally they have to have a certificate now. And if they own a jet ski, they have to have the personal watercraft certificate also. Water ski.
I don't think you can get it without code.
Yeah, I don't think aren't they combined right now?
Yeah, you have to take the extra 2
Do
hours.
you have to
Yeah, I
take
don't
both?
think there used to be one or the other, now it's combined.
Yeah,
Oh,
a blue
interesting.
one and a red one, and now the both.
Yeah, we said we put it in, and I discussed it with Mr. Delgado. So if they are combined, we need both.
Now you don't get the card, you just get a printout from your
Okay.
from
And
your computer. You just
frankly,
get your.
this is nice, not need. We could take it out if we have to.
I mean, as long as it doesn't confuse anything,
Right.
let's,
Yeah, leave it in.
yeah.
Okay. So that's all the definitions for Article 2. Section 190-5, limitation of use of Columbia Lake, okay? In this term, and you will see this throughout, A, no person shall launch. Section 196, -6, prohibiting certain use. A, no person shall launch, no person shall launch, no person shall launch. D, actually, Mr. Delgado recommended that we put in the term that we not let what we don't want on the lake launch. And what we do want on the lake, let them launch. And the reason is, DEEP has no authority to tell us what we can put over a private municipal boat launch. So if we want to keep something off the lake, use the term launch. If we want to keep something on the lake, use the term launch. So anything that's launched that we would not allow, assuming DEEP blesses all what we're saying when we get there, then the Marine Patrol would have the opportunity, and we've written in the penalties to stop and take them, have them go off the lake.
So they were all right with the term to operate?
We're still talking to DEEP of or operate, okay?
Yeah.
But they really want the word launch in.
Right.
We may have to delete operate.
Because I read the first, from 84 and when 87, they would have
Yeah.
in here.
And that's because.
Anybody can use any
we have
water
all
on
water
it.
bodies.
Yeah.
Right. So the term operate may come out. but we're gonna keep the term launch, and that's at their suggestion. Any questions on limitations of any vessel on the water? We have to be a resident. If there's no questions on 195,
The,
I'll
well,
go to
the only question I
196.
got on that is like, I had, when they came in and did the fish
right,
check,
yeah.
that boat was, was it out of the water for 5 days and meet those requirements and, cause that's going into ponds all over the state.
Right,
I don't
absolutely.
know if that's something here.
That wouldn't be in here, but when we spoke with them on electrofishing, they have to do the same clean, dry, 5 day, and they use chlorine, I think he told me, for something green. And that's under vessels for commercial use, which is why we put it in there.
All right,
That the town can approve a commercial use, which is deep, doing electrofishing.
but like, I remember Andover Fire Department had a boat in one time. They were doing some training
Okay.
with permission, but still. So,
196.
Got a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to reiterate, and maybe be the devil's advocate here, are they saying that we should list all the boats, all the vessels that are allowed to be launched, and then list all the types of vessels that are not allowed to be launched?
Not necessarily, Bob, but as you'll see, and I think when we get to, and it's in, is it in this one, what we allow or not, there's, yeah, when we get to part E, that's pretty much the list. And then, which we outlined with them and listed, recreational vessels that can be launched. I think we can use the term operate because in AB 195, that's because you gotta be a resident. So you can launch and operate. You can launch and operate a motor vehicle or construction equipment with Board of Selectmen. But when we get to section E, that's when we're using the term launched only. So launched on waters only shall be restricted to rowboats, sailboats, kayaks, non-motorized paddle boats, canoes, sailboards, paddleboards, motorboats, pontoon boats, electric kayaks, jet boats, and jet skis, also known as PWC.
so motorboats doesn't cover pontoon boats?
Motorboats does cover pontoon boats. That's a
Doesn't
general
cover
term.
jet skis, too.
Although any
But
boat,
you wanted to
with-
define it a little better?
yeah, any boat with a motor up to 65 feet.
And why does, it says E and then E continued, does that need to be?
Oh, no, that was my
Just a
bad.
split in the page.
It was on the other page.
Oh, got it, okay,
And as we started to make adjustments.
yeah, that's fine, yeah. Just wanted to clarify.
So again, Mary, you're going to say these are the boats these are the vessels that are allowed to be launched.
Launched.
We're not going to list vessels that are not allowed to be launched, correct?
Yes, we are. It's right in the next term.
Yeah, it's on E, yeah.
Okay, so again, playing devil's advocate here, if we start listing certain things, what if a type of vessel is invented that we have not listed in either category? How do we deal with that?
We already did this last October, November, and December. What they're suggesting is we don't use the word operate, we use the word launch.
I realize that, but what I'm saying is, what if between now and June, I invent a vessel that is not listed in either one of those categories? Things are happening.
Good time
You know,
to-
Bob, like you're saying, like maybe an electric paddleboard, which goes 30 miles an hour or something.
Exactly.
It's a good example.
But doesn't that cover it, Mary?
Is that?
Well, it says electric boats. It doesn't say electric paddleboards. So
Right.
If it has some sort of a motor, it's considered a motorboat.
Consider
Yeah.
the vessel.
Then why are we listing paddle boards?
Why aren't we?
It's
Why,
not-
why are we listing them? If they're considered motorboats, why not just say motorboats?
The term we're using is vessels to cover everything. That's the general term. The term motorboat covers anything with a motor or propelled by motor.
Do you,
Box
do
definition.
you have motorized paddle boards listed?
You don't need
You don't need to.
It's a motorboat.
Okay,
It's any vessel propelled by a motor up to 65 feet. That's the deep definition.
And anything below that may have a separate definition for some other purpose, like a houseboat is a motorboat, but we're saying those kind of motorboats you can't have, or in flyboards potentially are motorboats too, and we're just saying no to those. So, there are, different types of, motorboats. A personal watercraft is a motorboat as well as being a personal watercraft.
well, you're not listing anything other than just motorboats, correct?
No,
No, there's other things you might list.
vessels,
Would you, I'm sorry, I don't have the list in front of me,
a
would you?
motorboat is a type of vessel.
Correct. There's a definition now for vessel.
Henry, I understand what motorboats are. All I'm asking is, what are the approved vessels that can be launched? I don't have the list in front of me. Would you read it again, please?
Oh, yeah.
Sure, I'm happy to.
That's a separate listing. Holy cow, really.
This is what we approved last, October, November, and December. I'll read it from here. Recreational vessels that can be launched on the waters of Columbia Lake shall be restricted to rowboats, sailboats, kayaks, non-motorized paddleboats, canoes, sailboards, paddleboards, motorboats, pontoon boats, which we don't have to add in there actually, electric boats, electric kayaks, jet boats, and jet skis, known as PWCs.
Okay, is not a jet ski a motorboat?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Is not a pontoon boat a motorboat?
So do we have?
Yeah, it is.
You're
Well-
duplicating efforts here. All I'm trying to do is clean this up. If motorboats is on,
There are some motorboats that are not allowed, like a houseboat is a motorboat. So you can't just say motorboats.
We have to be a little more specific.
Hmm.
So far, Deep has not flagged this, so far.
Mary,
So is there,
The
Mary, is there a possibility that an electric boat could not require state of Connecticut registration and still be allowed on our lake?
No, not that I know of.
And the reason I ask that is, should we be specific to state in this paragraph that they also have to be registered with the state of Connecticut in order to be launched, or no?
Henry?
do.
We generally say somewhere that you gotta comply with state law as well as the town ordinances. So we don't say that, we don't say a lot of other things that you have to do under state law.
All right, so we may mention it somewhere else, is what you're saying.
Right, yeah, but your paddle boat or paddle board or whatever, doesn't need to be registered.
Right.
So you have to be just saying that we are complying with state law for motorboat, for instance, whatever the state requires to be registered is the law that we're complying with, or right? Is that my?
Well, we don't even talk about registration because of the fact we do generally say, in addition to these ordinances, you gotta comply with state law.
Right.
And registration just happens to be one of the state laws that you have to comply with.
What he said.
Which is in the enforcement.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, okay, it's mentioned somewhere else.
Bob, I think to your issue is when you say, what will we not allow to be launched on the waters? We have to be a little bit more specific. We say the vessels recreationally that cannot be launched. Include without limitation houseboats. In enclosed, vessels with an enclosed cabin, suggestion from Deep. Cabin, radio, or remote controlled vessels. Vessels containing temporary or permanent sleeping arrangements. And vessels with any toilet facility as well. Did we take out J?
No, we left it in.
Okay, as well as jetted articulated vessels. So we are being specific, and to that point, we're starting with the vessels, but we're being a little bit more specific.
yeah,
Deep actually referred us to Candlewood for some of their language.
right. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to say we have to change these. I'm just, again, going through them in my mind and looking for loopholes, because there's gonna be somebody in the lake that's gonna find some kind of a loophole the minute we get too specific. Again, broader language is usually better because it's more all-inclusive. The minute you become specific, then there's a hole somewhere between two things. There's a gap, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I'm with you, but if they're allowing us to say vessels, that covers any watercraft, and if they're allowing us to say motorboats, that covers anything propelled by a motor.
Yep.
So we can, I think we got the best of both worlds, and that doesn't mean it won't be adjusted somehow.
Yeah, I
Mary,
think we do too, Mary. I agree. Again, I'm playing devil's advocate here, just in case. It's just one more. Okay.
can you hear me? I wanted,
Okay.
yeah, I did. On 190-6 on number B, and it says, no person shall launch or operate any vessel or motorized vehicle on the ice of Columbia Lake except by special permit. I didn't hear anything about ice boats. They're wind driven. We have sailboats, but we don't mention anything about an ice boat. Is that being?
Henry, I agree that I noted that, read that one to me again, where you're at. Because you found where you-
190-6 level number B. It says no person shall launch or operate any vessel or motorized vehicle on the ice of Columbia Lake except by special permit from the Board of Selectmen. My question was, were we purposely excluding a wind-driven ice boat?
No, that I made a note that we need to broaden that to include ice boats, and I'm trying to find 190-6.
It's right here, it's on page 3. Page 3. Second
Article
page.
2, Article
Page
2,
3.
Henry.
So we want to include what, Henry? Ice? What do we call
Sail-
it?
They're
Ice
just-
boats
they just
propelled
outlaw
by
motorboats
wind.
Motorized on the ice, that's what.
ice boats.
I added the word motorized back in. It needs to say no person shall launch or operate any motorized vessel or motorized vehicle.
It does say that.
You know, the motorized, it's gonna be repeated twice.
I got it. Okay, thank
It
you.
says
We took
any
out
vessel.
one word too many.
Got the correction. Thank you.
So
Awesome.
they're not which they never have been, really.
So
Correct.
are we good with E, our recreational vessels launch?
Simple question.
Yeah.
Now, the statement where it says without limitation houseboats. Does that mean the houseboat will not be allowed on the lake next to the season here or going forward?
Gotta go to D.
No, we have to go to,
Yeah, I did do G, but it almost sounded like G was specific to the 26-foot rule.
no, it's
Yeah.
specific to what's on the way.
So
But we can go
that
there.
was a little foggy.
I just have a question, electric boats. Would that be, I don't know what those are called, the fly boat,
Hydro boats,
the one the guy has a motor underneath and
hydrofoil.
hydrofoil, that's an electric boat.
That's in a different section. We'll get there.
That's because that should be in here too, right?
It's in the safety regulations, I believe.
Not sure that's
It's in
allowed,
that-
is it?
yeah,
Yeah, it's there.
Okay,
it's in the next section. We'll get
I
there.
read it in safety.
Thank you. So, we're good with what can be launched and what can't be. Now we get to G, and this may get to your question, Michael.
It's a good question.
Obviously, you can't discharge, okay, E, F. So G, and again, we've gotten some help from Deep on this. Any vessel, and they said to go to Candlewood and use their language, any vessel exceeding 26 feet in length, as listed on its original title, is prohibited to launch on Columbia Lake unless specifically permitted by the town board of selectmen, either because the vessel was launched on Columbia Lake prior to November 2nd, or for other appropriate governmental purposes. Vessels exceeding the limit must possess a valid posted exemption sticker specifically approved by the Board of Selectmen as being on the lake before November 2nd, 2023. With no subsequent change in ownership in order to continue to launch on the lake.
Michael made a good point. We've got to take that same concept and bring it up to E with respect to the prohibited craft, because we do know we have a houseboat and so forth. So
like an Aspen. Is that really a asterisk and a footnote?
No, I think it just needs to be repeated, or we need to break it out into a separate section. It had been a separate section before.
And
I
we just
think,
combine
I
it.
think for purposes of our conversation with DEP, it's better to repeat it and use similar language, because they're liking the language of Candlewood Lake, and that's what we kind of repeated here, so we need to kind of tweak that language a little bit and add it to E.
Got it. Okay,
So with the permit one, that would be like, say, the town had to buy a harvester that was bigger than 26 feet or something like that.
Yes, exactly, or have a consultant come in with one, or
Yeah.
whatever, or there has to be a barge in which they dump all of the stuff as they
Right,
collect it, you
right,
know, or
right.
whatever the case may be.
Okay.
got it. Good. Review. Okay. Everybody cool?
Just
Yeah.
like Fonzie.
H, wake jumping is prohibited. That was in there before.
But is that also a state one too? Is that like repetitive from the state? I mean, that actually,
I
you're
didn't
not
know.
supposed to be within 100 feet of a boat
Let me double check that.
and 200 feet with a jet ski, so that's almost like a double. The state rule says you can't be
They
within 100
didn't
feet.
flag it, they didn't.
They didn't flag it, well, you know,
Yeah,
it's already, you know, the state rule, you can't go within 100 feet.
I think it was
Yeah,
just
excuse
in the last ordinance. and they
And
didn't-
jet ski, yeah, but that's when, you know, the figure eight thing was
Right,
same thing, where what, you know, what exactly is that? That's someone was driving crazy and they put it in 35
Well,
or 40 years ago.
yeah, well, it may be that, the state has adopted our rule.
Yeah.
In the process of doing this, but we're trying to, you know, preserve what we've had so that we have some level of independence of saying we're not conforming completely.
Excuse
The
me.
old,
yeah, definitely.
the old age was the grandfather clause that we, took out in favor of going the Candlewood approach. They haven't said that this grandfathering didn't work, but they really didn't want to dive in and try to make sure that there weren't holes to be poked in it, because they said, we've already done that with Candlewood Lake, if you can go the route of the language there, we're happy with it, we're happy that it protects, and the goal here is to protect against unjust taking of somebody's boat.
It says what we discussed this morning.
Question, please, excuse me. Mary, going back to wake jumping,
Uh-huh,
I believe we're proposing no wake jumping whatsoever, correct?
now, I think we just carried it over from the last ordinance,
Yes.
the practice of jumping.
You can do it.
Oh, last ordinance, we didn't change that at all.
Right, and we're not gonna change it, correct?
Correct.
But we have a definition that says for purposes of this subject section, wake jumping means the maneuvering of a vessel within 100 feet of another vessel's stern. So if you're wake jumping at 150 feet, you can do it.
I don't think that's what the intent was when we first had the thing. It says no wake jumping whatsoever.
Mm,
It's different than the state. The state, if you're beyond 100 feet or beyond 200 feet, you can wake jump. I don't believe that's what the intent was on the lake. I think the intent on the lake is no wake jumping whatsoever.
When they did this rule, there were no such thing as a jet ski.
But
So they were doing it with boats, which is a lot
Right,
more
right.
dangerous.
Yeah, a small runabout would be,
Yeah.
doing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
like my aluminum boat with a 10 of horsepower on it, or a plywood boat with an outboard that was probably faster than it needed to be.
it takes a pretty big boat to jump,
Guys,
take a big enough weight to jump.
Digress here. Let's not digress. Come on. Let's focus on what we're talking about here. We're talking about, do we,
We actually are
well,
about.
Do we have,
we have this as it's always been, so do we need to make a change?
so I'm gonna look way back, I just hold it fast here, I'll see.
I'm looking it up as we
what
speak.
does it say? What does it say, please, Mary? Read it again, please.
Bob, there's no way you can get a copy of this?
do you want me to read it?
Yeah,
Well,
would you read?
no, if we have to sit here and read everything because, you know, it's just, this is gonna take forever.
100 feet is reasonable.
And we're talking about,
Puts it into the
we're
state.
talking about something that has worked, so I don't know why we're saying we change it.
And I'm trying, I just opened the original ordinance, so let me see.
The way you're talking about it, there's a wake 1,000 feet from another boat, you can't jump the wake. That's impossible, you gotta,
Where you can't, everybody be drunk.
It's,
Leave it the way it is.
means maneuvering of a vessel within 100 feet of another vessel's stern, it's the same exact word, same exact. That's what it's always been, so let's keep it.
Alright,
Everybody agree?
yep,
yeah.
penalties,
Okay, Henry, you want to address the penalties? What I just gave you is what the new language you
Okay,
suggested.
we're gonna use a penalty, clause that, is common throughout these. And the,
How throughout what?
each of these the three ordinances. And now read, any person who violates any provision of this article shall terminate the current voyage at the request of the Marine Patrol officer and may be fined $200. So we made it, there's a change there by, allowing, to go back, requirement to go back to the dock is at the discretion of the Marine Patrol officer. And the fine is also, discretionary too. It does not necessarily automatically have to be a fine. And then it says, any such violation which is of a continuing nature shall be deemed a separate violation for each time it occurs.
For each day.
Not time, not day, and then there's another sentence, each day the violation continues, shall be deemed a new occurrence. So this allows for somebody to be caught 3 times or 2 times doing wake jumping on Sunday afternoon and get 3 citations for it. But at the same time, it makes it clear that what happens if you've got something that is ongoing, each day is a new violation. It then goes on, if any operating violation is deemed to be reckless, or if ongoing operating violations continue in such a fashion that continued violations are deemed to be a reckless disregard of applicable provisions of this ordinance, the Board of Selectmen, acting in conjunction with the Connecticut State Police, reserves the right to prohibit the violator from operating a vessel or any similar vessel. If we added any similar vessel, so you can't just move from one motorboat to another, on the lake for a designated period of time not to exceed 1 year.
okay,
And Deep's suggestion was, we originally said the boat could be taken off the lake, you can't do that, according to Deep.
Yeah. I think what I read, what you edited, Mary, has a repetitive clause that doesn't need to be in
What's that?
if we say, this now reads, if any operating violation is deemed to be reckless, or, we don't need the or.
Oh, okay.
The second clause covers it all, which says that ongoing operating violations continue in such a fashion that continued violations are deemed to be a reckless disregard of applicable provisions of this ordinance, the Board of Selectmen, etc.
Got it. Okay,
And we're gonna use that 190-7, that same language in each of the ordinances, so that they're uniform.
so does everybody agree that that will stand for all the ordinances?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you, cool.
all right, moving on, Article 3,
Article 3,
all right,
safety regulations.
yep,
This is relative to, well, let's go through it. You see all the definitions there, I think start is what Deep is saying is, we must use to be consistent and uniform. I don't think there's any major changes. to
Well,
any-
you need to talk about the personal watercraft, because the deep personal watercraft definition is limited to internal combustion engine. We had trouble with that, and Mary talked with them about that.
Correct.
And it's being tweaked.
we believe it'll be tweaked or that they'll accept or an electric system. There are actually electric jet boats now. And man, they cost a lot of money,
I got-
15 to 19,000.
I got a question, if we have these things in here, but the state changes, like, if the state went on to change that rule,
Right.
that they redefined it, that would immediately go into our lane too.
No, it wouldn't. They would have to comply with the state rule, whatever it is.
Yeah,
But our definition in our ordinance would,
it wouldn't cover it, but the states will,
the state would.
the state would, so then we're okay.
Yeah.
Right, we're covered, so
Yeah.
then we can move into doing that too. Right?
Yeah.
And then another,
And
the state does it, now we do.
yeah, we could follow through, yeah. we could- But if the state did it, we didn't change ours, the state laws would still apply.
Right, so we're covered.
Right.
So the definitions are very similar.
The vessel, this definition is different than what we're saying, because it says that it has a machinery, propelled by machinery, and we're calling vessels kayaks, canoes, and.
No, the vessel says every description of watercraft other than a seaplane on water used or capable of being used as a means of transportation on the one.
Yeah,
Oh, wait a minute, I went to the motorboat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I missed.
I'm going, huh?
Yeah, all right, I missed it, yeah.
I'm with you. Okay, so definitions are standard from DEP if they're starred. We still have to wordsmith a little bit the certification. Now, regulation of motorboats on Columbia Lake. Some minor changes but no changes really in the timing of when you can have a boat on the lake or not. The minor change is the definition of a slow, no wake. Actually, they're just asking us to put the total definition in,
Where are
A 190-12.
Page 2.
And the trolling motor must operate at a slow, no wake speed in order to not produce more than the minimum, shall not attain speeds greater than 6 miles an hour. It's very similar to theirs. On larger rivers, etc., you could go quicker or faster, if the wake is still small, but you gotta stay with the current. That was part of the discussion we had. I don't think that's gonna impact us.
So the only thing I have to say about that is that the language may change a little bit depending on what gets decided about the state program that.
Yes, but I would keep that separate right now. It may or may not, and it may be in a different ordinance.
But we,
They want to rehash the whole DEP program.
oh, yes, I understand that, but the slow no wake is not.
No, I was more talking about the hours between 10 at night to 7 in the morning. The only reason that's in there is so fishermen can go out with all their trolling motors.
You can have fishermen on the lake too.
True.
So you have to be very careful, unintended consequences, us versus them. So I think any change, I would move forward, I think
With this.
what we're
Well,
gonna,
they're okay with the wording right there, slow, no wake?
The DEP is they didn't want,
Yeah.
this is what they pushed us hard to go.
and I get it.
Our definition was pretty much the same thing, but they were very clear that they wanted to have that saying that they teach that in the certificate clause, or so everybody knows what slow no wake means, and so they want to have it be a universal term.
Because slow 6 miles an hour, you got your nose up and trim up, you're gonna make a big wake. That's what the whole idea is, not to make it. So,
What did we have, barely steerage or something like that?
We had that in one section, we had 6 miles an hour, no wake in another, but this unit makes it uniform, it's less specific in some cases, but it's the definition that they go with.
And it says you can't not produce more than a minimum wage. I think,
Right.
you know, if push comes to shove,
The minimum wage is what
right?
government.
Everybody cool with A?
Yeah.
B, figure 8, we didn't change any of that except to call it a motorboat instead of a watercraft. C,
What about the figure? What does that mean? I mean, that's like you're out in the middle of the boat making circles? I don't quite
Well,
know.
they're basically making a figure eight as opposed to just.
you're creating huge waves and making.
Or unreasonable sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reasonably short.
Well, there's these things we do call them double, but I'm not sure if that has anything to do with this. I don't know if you know that is.
That changes from the original. C is all about horsepower. There was a lot of conversation around this, and it's help us to say it better, I guess. No person shall launch or operate on the waters of Pumping Lake a motorboat with an outboard engine whose horsepower exceeds 80, or a motorboat with an inboard engine whose horsepower exceeds 150. Everybody's cool, that's the same. Engine horsepower or other power specifications prior to conversion to horsepower, as provided in section 190-12D, will be measured by the original engine manufacturer's documentation. We'll get to D. But we're saying you can't be over 80 or 150. No modification may be made to change any motorboat engine's horsepower operated on Columbia Lake. A motorboat launched on Columbia Lake may only have one engine. Deep suggested we either say that or we say aggregate 80, because there was a loophole on Rogers Lake where they said 50 horsepower and a guy showed up with 250 horsepowers on the back of his boat. It says I can have a 50 horsepower, I just happen to have two. We decided to stay with the language, you can only have one engine, with the exception of trolling, capable of propulsion at the slow no wake speed. Cool?
Why is it called a trolling engine?
Well, it's like sometimes it's electric, but you can have like a 5 horsepower next to your motor
Yeah.
that's connected, you can still steer with the steering wheel. I don't know
You
if
can
it's
have
like-
it, I thought Mary just said you can't have two outboards on one.
Yeah, because that's a little,
With the exception.
Isn't a 5 horsepower an
well, the
outboard?
trolling
which
motor, you can't use them both at the same time.
Right, right.
So
That'd be a little
what you
crazy.
gonna call
No, I think it's fine.
Oh.
What's the issue? It's no more than one
Well,
motor unless you have a trolling motor.
Yeah, typically an engine is an internal combustion engine and it's an electric motor, is my understanding of it,
it
so.
for trolling?
Well, I'm just saying, there, you know, it's engine, you could say engine or motor,
Okay.
or forward. But typically, do we wanna limit the trolling motors to electric?
You're not gonna see anybody with it.
Trolling engine is what's in the statute now, what's in our ordinance now. And I think it's because anything you put on the back of a boat is kind of called an engine, whether it's a trolling motor or not, but,
So I guess it just goes back to the discussion where you can have the trolling engine operating before 6 AM.
Correct.
Becomes a noise issue for the homeowner. That's the only reason why I mentioned it.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I think it's a good, to me, it makes sense, it's a good pickup and.
A little
Well-
breaststroke doesn't make any noise.
but
What do we want to say?
remember the fact that our audience are the fishermen, and they are the most hostile. And if we're saying there's no change made here, I think we're on stronger ground politically than if we put in a change here, because then they're gonna say, we wanna change it further.
Then the prior comment, you can only have one engine is incorrect.
I thought, I know,
No, it says except, if there's an exception to
With
that.
the exception of a
Oh,
trolling.
okay, so exception of a, okay.
I
Do we
thought,
wanna limit, do we limit the horsepower?
Yeah, it's slow no wait. We can't technically limit.
Okay, fair enough, no,
I think.
So-
position understood.
So can I have a second 50 horsepower engine and use it as a trolling motor as long as I don't go above idle?
No, because it's capable of propulsion at more than a no wake speed.
Yeah, as long as you're using one motor, that's kind of what he's saying.
No, he
What-
just did the loophole.
Yeah, you can't do both.
you just,
If you had 250s, you said one was a trolling motor, as long as you didn't run both 20.
No, it says capable of propulsion
Yeah.
and no more than,
where,
so
I'm sorry, wait a minute, did I
With the
miss
exception-
this?
it's not,
Yeah, so, yeah,
it's not in your language in front of you.
Oh.
So have,
So.
Okay, so
I agree
there's
that-
capable in,
Capable of propulsion of no more than.
oh,
That's
okay,
my-
all right.
You guys don't have the most.
Bob,
up-to-date-
good pickup, that was definitely, we were all looking at the same. thing.
Yeah, you're all jumping on the same thing that we modified this morning. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, we're good.
I'm actually reading the ones that were sent
Oh, you know
out to
what, it
us.
says, it's actually stricken right below it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we shortened it by saying, it now will read with the exception of a trolling engine capable of propulsion at no more than slow, no wake speed.
yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay,
And Mary, where you got motorboat engines operating on Columbia Lake and the Cinnamon, it's gotta be apostrophe S on engine.
oh, okay. Engines. Oh, I got it.
Mine is.
Okay, oh yeah, I got, we're looking at the old one.
So section D.
Mary, I have
This-
a question first, please.
Also,
Bob Millard made reference to something about 6:00 AM. I believe internal combustion engines are prohibited until 7. Is that right?
yeah, we didn't change that at all. So
All right,
whatever it
okay.
is, it
I thought it
is.
was 6
It
on.
is 7.
Yeah,
10 to 7, 10 PM to 7, okay.
yeah, and then it's from 6 PM to 8 AM between October 1st and March 31st. So
Oh,
that was
Yeah.
that's where you probably heard the 6.
Okay,
In there, it does say the only exception is an electric trolling motor.
That's right. Yes,
Where
it
we
does.
going?
then why don't we put that in?
I would change it to electric, because you
Yeah.
can't use a combustion engine for 7 o'clock anyway.
Why don't we just say it in the other one?
Yeah, we should repeat, I think we should, since we were saying electric trolling motor up there, we should repeat the electric trolling motor down here.
I got
I agree.
it, I got it.
Just to be consistent.
Yeah.
We can say that we're just changing that language to be consistent.
Yep.
Yeah.
That. On the next section, how do you convert if it's kilowatts or pounds of thrust to?
Well, yeah. Kilowatt I get, I mean, that's a very equal equation in the generation of power.
Correct.
Pounds
Pounds of thrust in.
of thrust, I'm not sure where.
This was our discussion with Dee. I didn't even know what the hell pounds of thrust was.
I was like trying to think of it. Thrust is a measure of the force applied in a specific direction, typically generated by an engine or motor to propel a vehicle forward. So it's the measure of the force that's being generated by the propeller or the jet or whatever. So it's not, but it is wildly inconsistent and difficult to measure.
And I'd like to bridge to that.
Yeah, because, and I think it's a rabbit hole that just
And I'd like to.
makes my
suggest-
head explode,
I'd
but
like to update you with Deep said
thank
last
you,
night,
yeah.
okay? Deep said,
Mike,
get
Mike,
rid of
hey, Mike,
any equation.
Michael,
Oh.
Michael, excuse me, but when they talk about electric vehicles, electric powered vehicles, they always rate them as horsepower.
Okay, you're right, you're absolutely
Yeah,
right,
you're
Bob.
right, yeah,
Let's get through this
yeah,
section.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because
So
I'm a clue that you don't see, that Henry and I had to discuss, and I discussed with Deep yesterday. In what you have section little 1, little 2, little 3, 1 horsepower equals
Yeah,
pounds of thrust. It's all deleted. It's all deleted.
We put it in there because in our initial conversation with
Deep
the,
told us to,
it was, they were aiming at saying be specific.
yes.
So we did the best we could by what we could look up on the internet to be specific, but we added the catch-all number 3. And Deep has come back and said, just go with the catch-all number 3.
So, modified this. All the equations went away, and Deep, and he said to me yesterday, I don't even go there. So we said now, no one shall launch a motorboat powered by systems not designating horsepower, perhaps such as an electric motor system or pounds of thrust that exceeds the engine horsepower limits 80, 150, as measured by the original manufacturer's documentation. When a manufacturer does not specify the horsepower of an engine, the horsepower shall be determined by such method that the Board of Selectmen shall designate in writing. So Deep is saying, be general and figure it out if you have the.
All right,
So kilowatts and horse
done, kick the can
are
down
a
the road.
conversion of torque.
Excuse me?
So when you go to a dyno.
Yeah.
It measures the amount of torque that an engine is producing. And then there's a factor that crosses over 5,200 RPM, and you can convert it to horsepower. So horsepower and kilowatts are a measure that will derive from the amount of torque an engine is creating.
Right.
So kilowatts is just a conversion.
Yeah, we're,
Yeah.
But they
so just don't worry about it, we're moving on, 'cause
Deep
it's
said,
now 9 o'clock. and-
don't use.
Yeah, so we're not, don't worry about it, we're not gonna use it, so.
So I.
There's so many other things going on.
The Board of Selectmen, if we ever have the issue, and we can pick up the phone and call Mr. Delgado and say, we got this issue, and how would we solve it? Bob Powell made a good point. The new electric jet skis have horsepowers designated. It was 25 kilowatt battery, 160 horsepower. So that equation wouldn't have worked. We would have been screwed. So that's why it's gone. Everybody, thumbs up, thank you. Okay,
Page 4,
is there anything? Water skiers, no person. Some of these did not change, A, B, C, D. A couple of wordsmithing
yeah, but then.
until we get to G.
G, I was gonna say that's more than wordsmithing.
Okay. And we, Henry and I, after speaking to Dean yesterday, made some adjustments, so you gotta listen. No person shall launch any vessel and or activity with an airborne or underwater component that allows it to lose contact with the water for more than an incidental moment. This could be a jetpack, a flyboard, hydro, e-foil boards, fly fish tubing, or parasailing. What Deep said to me was, the way we had it worded before we put in, lose contact with the water for more than an incidental moment, you are banning tubing. Because tubes sometimes hit a wave and bounce up. Do you want to ban tubing? I said, no, we don't want to ban tubing. So he said, then you should put something in that says something to the effect of it momentarily or at an incidental moment. So that's why it's in there. And
Okay.
that is their suggested one.
Fair enough. So, and I'm just, why, I'm asking the question here, why are we banning any hydrofoil here?
I mean, underwater device, I mean,
I do-
you're out driving a boat is an underwater device.
Now, we're talking jetpack, that thing that goes
No,
up.
I get that, but
I do believe it's banned in the state of Connecticut.
any hydrofoil of any
I
kind.
will double check, but he never flagged it. I think
Santos
it's
has
still-
He has a.
He did say to me, there may be some changes coming down the pipe.
Well, I mean, there's sailboats that have hydrofoils now. Are you saying those are banned?
I can check with them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just,
But-
yeah,
And they'll flag it and come back to us and say, you gotta take this out.
yeah.
Well, what are the things called where the guy has the electric motor and he's got an e-board?
That's an E.
And they stand
That's
up,
the e-foil, it's here.
but that is underwater and then prop is.
As of now, it's banned in the state of Connecticut.
Well, yeah, but I think one of the, I don't, Bob Powell, you would know this. There was those boards that, don't they need in order to be registered, they need a way of maneuvering or something? You had brought it up in the past. Does that sound familiar to you? Like the e-foil board, you know, doesn't have a way to steer, you know, the only way to steer it is to,
Like a skating way.
yeah, is to shift your weight. Was that, does that sound familiar to you, Bob?
No, it doesn't, but there's something in the state regulations about manually operated, hoverboards. They have a button that they push and things like that.
Okay,
Something about that. I'm not sure.
There's one I know about, a water ski thing that has like a jet ski out front and a rope, and on your handle, you got a throttle and can get towed around. Those I know are illegal. But I don't know about the surfboard with the, you know, with the.
well, I guess my question is,
That's
if it's a motorized vehicle that can be registered within the state of Connecticut,
Then it should be fine.
would that be legal
Yeah,
on the waters of Columbia? That's where I'm going.
yeah, if that thing can't be
That would
registered.
be under the definition of a motorhome.
Yeah.
Motorized vehicle.
Fair enough, and by the way, I don't know that these e-foil boards comply to,
As of now,
Okay.
they are not allowed, they're not, legal in the state of Connecticut.
okay,
But
Yes, now.
is the word, when you have hydro, are you implying, hydrofoil?
I guess.
Well, we should be, remove any doubt if we're knocking out hydrofoil.
it's a hydrofoil board.
Yes, well, hydro or e-foil, I think it looks, try to shorten it, but it begs the question. I think we should make it clear that it's not, any hydrofoil is a.
Well, so that goes back to my question.
Yeah, are you
Is,
banning
are you banning hydrofoil boats of any?
Yeah, and that's why I'm focusing on it too, because I agree that sailboats are different, but our lake is not designed for hydrofoil sailing, because our winds are not sufficiently consistent from a similar direction. We never found out.
It doesn't,
With an overweight body.
Henry,
this
Henry,
long,
Henry,
on a small hydrofoil sailboat, that is the case, but there are other boats that are smaller, like a 15-foot or 14-foot catamaran,
But,
that don't need the consistency of wind.
well, but you do, I mean, to get it up out of the water, you gotta have it be consistent.
Okay, so fair enough, so let's just take whether or not it can be done.
Right.
The question is, are we banning hydrofoils of any kind, and if so, why?
I would say it should be motorized.
Motorized, okay.
excuse me, Michael,
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bob.
we have a horsepower limit, correct?
Yep,
Okay, the reason we have a horsepower limit is to limit speed, correct?
Right.
go ahead, yep.
So a hydrofoil operates with less horsepower and produces more speed because there's less resistance. So if we have a hydrofoil that has some kind of a 80 horsepower or 75 horsepower engine, it's going to go 60 miles an hour
Or more.
or more. Yeah, this is what we don't want. This is what we don't want.
So you could
I think
outlaw catamarans.
we should ban motorized hovercraft.
Not, motorized hovercraft or motorized
Hydrofoil.
hydrofoils?
And
Yeah, hovercraft.
motorized hydro vessels. How's that?
Hydrofoils, that's hydrofoil
Hydro-
vessels.
Well, I
Yes.
think
Yes.
there's a difference because you can also have a motorized surfboard that you can lay on.
Well, the
Well,
state,
you
the
said
state,
the
the
state's
state's
already
already
outlawed.
banned those.
The state's already banned that.
The question is, and this is where I was getting is, are we banning hydrofoils? And Bob brought up an interesting point that now, and I think you said it as well, is that it's motorized hydrofoils. Is that, and we're doing it.
Those are outlawed by the state already.
No, they're not.
I'm gonna make a suggestion.
Yeah.
We gotta continue this conversation, but we should take hydrofoils and e-boards out of this equation and make them be a separate category because of the fact that they really don't lose contact with the water. And we want to, have that be for any vessel, whether it's motorized or not, if you're losing contact with, the thing. So let's talk about motorized hydrofoil and e-foils, but like, H, which breaks out kite surfing, we need to break it out as a separate category.
So I'm for breaking out a subcategory, and this is the slowest internet in this building, I'm sure. I think what we also need to check is what's legal and what's not legal in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah.
Well,
I know e-foils are still illegal.
Well, that's an e-foil board. What I'm referring to,
Yeah, is the,
and trust me, I don't want to do this. You need to bring it up, is there are motorized hydrofoil boats.
yeah, I'm looking at one right here.
Yeah, there's,
And it lifts the boat.
yeah, it lifts the boat right out of the water. and
Yeah.
It's mine, well, but cost is not a factor here.
Increases boats.
So check and see if motorized surfboards are allowed.
Doesn't matter, it's not.
Is that
They're-
similar to that?
No.
I don't think it's a matter of whether the state allows them or not. I think it's a question of whether they're safe on Columbia Lake.
I have to agree that the definition is a boat whose hull. Oh, shit. Fine, excuse me.
On record.
My computer. A boat whose hull is fitted underneath with shaped foils that lift the hull clear to the water to increase the boat's speed. To increase the boat's speed is concerning.
So the question is, are we saying motorized hydrofoil vessels?
That's what, yeah,
Is that what we're saying?
well, it's a
But we're using motor,
Water.
right?
motorized hydrofoil. I also think a hovercraft should be put into the same thing. They're capable of getting up and going faster too.
Hydrofoil or hovercraft typically.
Boating regulations.
I
It is really.
mean, it's like hovercraft are not typically not very fast. They have a
They're actually-
air fan.
And they're actually above the water.
Right.
That's already,
No, but they're above the water, yes, so that would be, they would be covered by that other ordinance, because we're only saying such as.
Right.
So make it a separate, and we gotta figure out
Foil.
and what's legal and not.
No, I just say that they're, whether it's legal or not in Connecticut, they're not legal on Columbia Lake.
No, I,
Motorized hydrofoil
that
vessels.
may reinforce.
Correct, that may reinforce, but otherwise, we're gonna break those out in it for the speed issue.
Okay,
Okay,
I got it,
well, but
I got
I
it.
just want to clarify again, motorized hydrofoil vessels, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay,
That's what I got.
and I would not put the definition in the front, but I put the definition in what we're bringing over here and make reference to the fact it's defined with speed.
okay.
Got it. Please give me another one. Okay,
What is a fly fish tubing?
oh, God.
Oh, boy.
that's the thing that somebody had on the lake last year.
Yeah.
It's a tube, it's an inflatable.
Ten by-
Inflatable tube, no, and it's actually it can catch air and fly.
Right,
They're wildly dangerous.
so that's illegal.
Yeah, that's.
Yes.
Any tube that can fly.
Look it up to see what it was.
All right.
And the first conversation, and the guy went, really?
I think they're outlawed everywhere.
Except the Caribbean, when you don't have any
Yeah.
thing, because you can't switch it off.
There's no insurance. Why?
All right, so moving into 190-14.
So here's the deal, 19014 restricted. A is fine, we just made some wordsmithing there.
Yeah.
B is the only to date, issue where, and let me tell you why. Deep has said we think you should remove this particular B. And this is the, if we wanted to put markers up, and it was started apparently in 1992, I could not find it. But let me tell you why they said what they said. And I had this conversation yesterday again with Tim, so we talked twice about it. They're suggesting that we remove B completely for the following 5 reasons. Or, well, I have a 5th reason. First and foremost, please be consistent and uniform with all other Connecticut water bodies relative to markers being used for regulatory, navigational, or special use. Second, Tim asked me the question yesterday, how often have you used this? What markers are now in place? And I went, we haven't.
None.
It's been here since 92. Third, he said this, and he's right. He said, this doesn't take away the ability to place markers. We have the ability because in the current voting laws for D, it just requires a permit. And as he said it, I said, oh, like we get a permit for our boat parade every year. We get a permit for regattas. We get a permit for parades, for ski courses, whatever you call your thing. And he said, yeah, why is this different? He said, all we're saying is be consistent, uniform, and apply for a permit and give us the rationale as to why you want it in X number of places. His other comment was, if anything were to happen and you put markers out, and he's flagged this already, I can tell you, if we keep it in, he's flagged it already. He said, if there's an accident, somehow involves the marker, somehow, there's the liability, Deep can't support you with any liability issues.
That's bullshit.
Well, that's fine, Henry.
On the record. Regularly, well, that's again his way.
That rules that has to do something with 100 feet from shore swimmers,
Well,
but we also have booths, I thought.
We got-
about this, but
This thing is dated from the
the draft, yeah.
there's one other issue. Catherine and Sage in December of 2015, Amanda Brosey, to the Board of Selectmen, gave them opinions relative to regulations. And in this memo of giving opinions to the Board of Selectmen, I don't know why, they must have been thinking of changing something. It was suggested that we should probably, and I will read it, we could implement markers. So they were suggesting that that marker section is questionable, but the board could map out designated areas and propose locations ahead of time and apply to the commissioner for authorization. So there's already been some board discussion about this.
Well, we already have swimmers. So, or don't even.
So what do we propose? What do you guys propose? Take it out?
Take it out.
Well,
So
the issue here, as far as I was concerned, is the fact that we've taken the approach historically, and I'm just being devil's advocate here, I'm not saying what my position is, but we've taken the approach historically that we don't want the DEP involved in the lake, except to the extent necessary, okay? So we're not looking to invite having to comply with state requirements and so forth. This was a law that's been on our book since the 1960s. It's been approved by the DEP in the past, and it's there. And we weren't changing anything in it at all when we provided the draft to them, other than what was needed to change definitions. So without coming back and discussing it here and raising that issue, because I know it's important to Jim Santos, it's important to others, that we, not invite the DEP to, or create scenarios where we have to go to the state more, and we have to go to the state now to get anything done. We do You know, we've had this on, we haven't used, buoys for years. The buoys left because they broke up. I think the more important thing is the swimmer role here and, how boats approach, leave the shoreline with water skiers. And that is not part of, the DEP, ordinances at
It
the
is
moment.
too, how they approach
Yeah,
docks, that's a deep,
that's a,
I didn't find it in those,
it is, it's a state law.
okay.
yeah.
So is there,
They've given us the rationale, they've flagged it already, there are 3 levels of official deep review. The 3rd level has flagged it already, and didn't say this, he can't say this, that it's probably not gonna last. The only thing he said to me was, could you please show me how it was grandfathered, when it was grandfathered, do you have, and I couldn't find it, you gave me a letter from 1987, I couldn't find it. And he said, but it will be flagged. So when it gets up to.
So that's from the sixties at least.
Yes.
I mean, 60 because of the years that I've never seen.
Well, when I was a kid, the buoys were there and.
But they were afraid of boats at that time.
okay,
Nothing, they're that old.
so I have a question. So is there, so we get it with the buoys.
Yeah.
But is there an intent, and I think you were trying to speak to that, is there an intent of activity within that 100 feet that we want to address? Maybe taking out the buoys that deep is, you know, do we wanna reinforce activity within that 100-foot you know, that 100-foot, area?
They're keeping this 100-foot swim.
No, I get it, but I'm just saying, instead of focusing on the buoys and just striking it all together, is there something that we wanna take from the intent of that area that we wanna keep in this to reinforce safe practices within 100 feet of shoreline? For the safety of everybody?
I believe, and I'll go back and check, we already have that, but if we don't,
Yeah.
within 100 feet, you can swim alone. Beyond 100 feet, you need a vessel, and 25, that's already in.
That's only here, that's nowhere else. You can take a swim right in the middle of the Atlantic River and see people doing it. That's only on our lake. I thought it was a state rule. I was one day, I was in the river, some guy was swimming, they said, you gotta be within 100 feet of shore. And I was absolutely wrong. He could swim right across the middle, unescorted.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
I got 102.
That's only our lake.
Again, I go back to, do we want to reinforce safe practices within 100 feet in it?
I think, if I can make a suggestion, I would say, we take out the board may cause suitable marking devices to be placed on unrestricted waters of Columbia Lake not more than 100 feet from the shoreline at intervals sufficiently frequent. Take out that first sentence. But
Yeah.
say, no person shall operate a motorboat between, 100 feet
Yeah,
of the shoreline, except when leaving or returning to the dock at the shoreline, and except when the speed of the motorboat is reduced to slow no way. That may be state law, but it's worth repeating.
That's fine.
that's what I'm getting at.
And our ones,
It's also
in
200
the next sentence too, no person shall engage in water skiing.
Yeah,
I won't say,
Within 100,
within 100 feet of the shore,
yeah,
That's a
Yeah,
state law.
200 feet for jet skis, done meaning as well.
pardon?
200 feet for jet skis.
Yeah, it's 200 for jet.
okay, Henry, you're gonna have to wordsmith this one.
Yeah, we can do that, and we're reinforcing that. We don't need to say the one about beyond the swimming, because that's the subject of D.
Correct.
So-
It's-
okay, so we don't,
Can I ask a question, Mike?
We trying to make everyone have a sailboat, but
wait a minute, no person shall engage in undertaking beyond 100 feet except when accompanied by a watercraft, we don't wanna say that?
D covers that, it's repetitive.
Yeah, understood.
Is everybody with us?
yeah,
Yeah, hey, Mary, I have to ask a question on the 100 feet. That means Are we saying that I can't get in my boat and operate min steerage inside of the 100 foot, inside of the 100 feet, just to take a cruise around the lake?
At slow no wake you can,
Of course you
So
can.
min
Yeah.
idle, I can do that, right?
yeah.
Well, technically,
You
I don't
should
think
be.
so.
it says, and that's what I've been saying too, since the sixties, it said, if no person shall operate a motorboat within 100 feet of shore, except when leaving or returning to the dock.
We cannot have that.
We can't have that.
Or it says except when the speed of the motorboat is reduced to bare steerage.
That's exactly it. It has to be slow.
Oh, it's not, there you go, yeah, look, except, yeah.
Yeah, you can't go 15 minutes now within 100.
Well, it says, it doesn't say and, it doesn't say or, it says and. And, I mean, this is what's protecting our shoreline from eroding. You shouldn't be operating within 100 feet of shore with a motorboat.
Yeah,
It's
so-
going go into the dock.
I'm sorry, slow no wake means minimum wake. And you get fishermen and tell them they can't have their motorboat in 100
Right.
feet.
Right, because
Yeah.
fishermen, fishermen,
No person shall operate a motorboat between 100 or within 100 feet of the shore, except when leaving or returning
Right,
to a dock at the shore, or except when the speed.
Well, we
of-
don't need to, we should take out except when leaving or returning to the dock and just leave the
Oh, there you
except,
go. Yeah.
except at the speed, no weight speed, because the returning to the dock was suggesting you could fly into the dock.
Yeah,
So to clarify,
Oh,
if somebody is in 100 feet of shore and doing 6 miles or less, they can come in right by your dock if they want to. Is that-
absolutely.
yeah, fishermen do it all the time.
Well,
yeah,
actually,
yeah, that's
I'm talking
correct.
about a motorboat.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
okay, so
That's
somebody at
Now,
8
now
o'clock.
I will tell you that most homeowners absolutely hate that rule. Because they don't
Yes.
want any boats by their dock and they think they own the water.
The
Yeah.
rule
And
was
that's-
put
that's
in
not
Bob.
true.
to protect
Bob,
swimmers.
it's not, Bob, it's not that we think, it's not that people think they own the water. It's that when the fishermen cast and catch their stone walls, their trees, and lose their lures
Oh,
in
I
a
get
swim
it.
area.
I get it, but I just want to know, because
I don't think that people think that-
they come over to our dock, do the same thing. They've actually
Well,
bumped our dock a couple times. So,
The reason is,
Town owns it, not the lake residents.
the reason this is in there mostly is to protect the first 100 feet for swimmer.
Yeah.
So that we
Totally
don't
agree.
promote an accident
Right. And the person.
between a swimmer and a motor.
yeah,
It's
so-
actually a little
so
farther out than that, because it's,
the only reason
you know,
I bring it up is
100 feet
we
from the
should
end of the
consider the
dock.
swimmers.
or any of, sailboat.
Wait, there's too many. Bob, what were you saying?
Well, I was just saying, should we consider at least some kind of distance for the swimmers?
100 feet.
It's down below, it's in D.
It's 100 feet?
Yeah, go to D.
But you're now allowing, even a slow wave, you're allowing boats and swimmers to operate the same 100 feet.
You're gonna have,
So we're saying swimmers can be 100 feet.
yeah, I mean, there's no
Yeah, and
way to
after
get-
that, they need to be accompanied by a watercraft.
Well, that was the purpose of this original rule where it says you're not within the 100 feet if you're going to and from a dock. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right, yeah,
It wasn't being designed to protect us against people not on the lake, because at the time this was put in, it was only of concern to the lake people.
I've never heard, I've been on lakes my whole life.
Well,
Strict,
Right, but what we just talked about is what it said originally.
yeah,
That's just
What did it
exactly what it
say?
said.
we can't restrict them.
Well, it was restricted. It was for years. It was restricted.
Let's step back, let's step
I
back.
will tell you, that was flagged by me.
Okay, fair, well, hold on. Let's step back. What problem are we solving here? We're solving,
Sure.
well, no, meaning, has there been any issues with boats at minimum steerage speed within 100 feet and swimmers? Have there ever been any reported issues of that?
One that I am aware of in all the years. One young lady was hit by her father in a boat. He's backing out from his dock, didn't see him.
Okay.
It happens.
but he was back, okay, but I mean, what we just wrote here would not have
Exactly.
prevented that,
Exactly.
so.
This is,
You gotta trust the boat driver to understand what's going on.
Well, and the swimmer to
And the
make
swimmer.
themselves, you know,
Karen looks up and down the lake, if she sees someone on her dock or someone in a boat, she'll swim the other direction. She's so afraid of it.
right, yeah.
She does that every day.
Yeah,
So do we wanna add the PWC within 200 feet into this as well?
It should already be there, that's.
yeah.
No, that's a state rule, it's a state rule, but.
Left side, Lola.
What's happened is that rule that you can take off and throw with a water skier, there's some people that believe you can take off and throw with a boat without a water skier, and that's been happening.
Fair enough. So were we comfortable with this?
Yeah,
Okay, and, okay, and we'll add the PWC within 200 feet. And I think everything else, the penalties and marine patrol,
It's good.
it's all the same. Okay, moving on. It's like Fonzie.
Okay, Article 4, there were no comments from D.
Okay.
Every change we have made is wordsmithing,
Yeah.
generally from the definitions.
Yeah,
Unless someone has seen something when they read Article 4. Henry?
But Article 4, we're gonna confine or conform the penalty clause.
yeah,
Right. Which is consistent with Article 3 and 4.
And let's see if there was anything else. We added the definition of town beach, just for specificity.
Yep.
We also clarified that when you're launching a boat at the town beach, you have to walk alongside the boat. Only if it's a vessel on a trailer being pulled by a motor vehicle. Because again, that's just a clarification of the common sense.
I gotta make a comment about that. That came originally when the boat ramp was in the middle of the swim area. And the boat ramp, it was a good boat ramp, better than what we have now, but people would be at the beach and using the beach. And they wanted to make sure no one was behind the trailer. When I go down and I watch boats all the time. One thing I really don't want people doing is walking beside my trailer and being behind my trailer.
Not behind it, for sure.
And then you have people, they're in your mirror and they're waving their arms. I'm like, what does this person want? I have no idea what they want. And I really am against having someone walking next to my boat trailer when I'm backing in.
And what if someone is launching the boat by himself?
That's what I do, it's dangerous to have someone, especially now that we have a wall
We want
on
that.
one side.
You're suggesting we take it out?
I'm suggesting we take it out.
hey, which area?
Walking along the side.
Walking alongside of someone backing up a trailer is very dangerous. At the time at the beach, when there was kids running around, now we have a specific place, there's no one jumping that wall,
I get it.
you know?
And I think we leave it to the discretion of, because every time I get down, nothing's there screaming at me.
Yeah,
Okay, let's part of this. Okay, go.
yeah.
So I think if we take it out, we leave it at the discretion of those who launch.
I
boats.
had people come all walk over and try to direct me how to launch my boat, and I'm like,
How many
I
years later?
you probably should stop waving your arms, because I don't know what the.
Is there any
I have one,
plus or minus to?
one comment, I have a comment is, under additional requirements for launching the vessel at the town beach. I agree with everything in there, but I don't see anywhere where it says anything about our little stickers for the town of Columbia. So before a boat is launched, it should have a sticker.
That's under, the general, isn't it, Henry, at the inspection?
It's the inspection board.
Yeah, there was a general statement relative, we don't have specific inspection rules. But you're right,
Yeah, I didn't see it anywhere in there.
Well, it's unwritten,
inspection procedures.
so that because there's a policy, and it was done that way, the inspection policy or whatever is on the town website and so forth. And the inspection is according with the Coast Guard auxiliary requirements and so forth. And it was designed so that the board of selectmen could say what the inspection procedures were without having to go back and modify the ordinance all of the time.
Hmm.
So,
Well, I think we had lots of problems with not having stickers on both of these, so.
well, that was because of how the town was using the inspection policy.
Well, I think we should keep it to the inspection policy,
Yeah, because that allows for us to adjust
to
it
make adjustments without going.
without having to go to DEP and change the ordinance and have a public hearing and all of that kind of stuff.
If you're,
Well, based on what was being said, if we were to go, and I hear what Dave's saying, I would say we just stop at the first sentence.
Go down and look, yeah,
And then to say, and then the last sentence, you say no person may launch a motorboat or personal watercraft at the town beach without first determining if the designated launch area is vacant. Period, and then take, there's no designated area to stop at, so we can take that out. And then the walking we can take out, and, that's 2 sentences. And then we can leave the last sentence to say vehicles are not allowed to park or stand in the designated launch area for longer than it takes to launch a boat.
got it. Can you guys look at that?
Yes.
Mhm.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything else?
One of the other things I'll just bring up, it's a new thing. One of the other things that's potentially a problem there is that people come in and tie up at that wharf there, or the wall, and it makes it then tough for people to launch a boat or to pull a boat. And I always thought that that wall was there for temporary docking when launching or pulling a boat, and not for being able to tie up there and run up on the beach and be with your family and then go out for another boat ride, in a half an hour.
So they did put a couple rings on the board up on the other, on the pier, right?
Here, right.
So I never do tie up to the pier, but you can, I think you want.
So
I've
are you
actually been alone and I've had to tie my boat up, rode my bike home to get my trailer.
So are
So-
you suggesting that we have some sort of sentence in
Yeah,
that says
that the wall, the tying to
is for temporary,
Can't leave your boat unattended.
yeah, well, you gotta,
Well,
you
no.
gotta take the trailer.
Yeah.
Park it.
but yeah, it's for temporary use while
While
launching or retrieving a boat.
I think,
I think that's-
most people are pretty good about that,
Yeah.
you know.
Most people are, but I ran into a couple people this
Yeah,
summer that were, it was mostly a teenager, probably using the dad's boat that otherwise would be at a mooring or something like that, but just kind of to emphasize what's common sense.
Dude, actually put a little sign up there, that says, you know, dock is for walking and like that.
Yeah, that's a
That
good
says
point.
something.
Maybe 4 or 5 bullets with launch rules.
Yeah.
Quick sign.
Say again,
Add
say
a,
again,
add a,
Bob.
add a small sign at the launch, exactly what we just discussed, 4 or 5
I don't think
bullets,
it has to be.
do's and don'ts.
So it doesn't have appointments.
I don't think.
Oh, I think it needs to be ordered too, to be honest with you, because people won't read those things.
Not really did,
Yeah. Well,
Should it be in the ordinance or not?
No,
If we're gonna put up a sign, it's gotta be backed up by something.
I don't
I
think
don't think
so.
it's
I
a-
think,
I
I
don't
think
think
it's
it's
a
a big
local
deal.
rule. I mean, it's a,
Cause, you know, everybody's always trying to get out of everybody's way to go.
yeah, I've never seen, the only boat I've seen tied up there for a while is the Marine Patrol.
Put that in the inspection policy.
there you go.
Yeah.
Then we don't have to worry about it being written. Can everybody live with that?
Yep.
If there are no more, are there any more, I should ask? Additions, deletions, edits, I'd like to suggest next actions. We have some changes we have to make. We would ask that LMAC allow Henry and I to, understanding the concepts we just agreed to, wordsmith and get this document ready for the Board of Selectmen next Tuesday, April 2nd. Our intent is to put this in front of the Board of Selectmen, to have them read and bless it, probably over a period of time, hopefully days. And to have the Board of Selectmen, and our suggestion will be to conduct a public hearing of these changes. Once we have a public hearing and we take all feedback, the board can then officially approve. We send it to DEEP, they have 60 days, and they have 3 layers they go through for approval. Starting with the environmental scientist, and then moving it up to the law enforcement guy, and then to the commissioner's office.
With that process, they have 60 days to do, so if we're looking to try to get something done for this year, if we were to be successful at getting the Board of Selectmen to have the public hearing and to take action in April, that would mean that by July 1st, we would have something. So we wouldn't be right at the start of the season, but the townspeople and the operators of boats and so forth would know that these have been passed as new town ordinances pending DEP review. So they should, while we wouldn't be enforcing them, they should hopefully be observed as something that you don't want to cross, like buying a 28-foot boat or whatever until you see how the state comes out on it. So that's kind of the goal. And if we have difficulty at a public hearing and then with the Board of Selectmen, we can then determine what to do. But just to throw out something for thought would be, maybe we need to, if that were to happen, to decide to proceed with 2 of these and leave the other one for further study, or to proceed with everything but paragraph H, if H is the one that's questionable, and reserve that for further study, rather than have it be an all or nothing approach here. So just thought of how things might unfold and what we might want to think about as it does, because given our experience with putting a gate on the beach ramp, changing this is going to create a very interesting public hearing. That will be an opportunity for lots of different factions to vent their feelings, and see where it all comes out.
What are you talking about, like H being approved? I think last time they did only one section. I don't know which section, it was section 4, section 3.
Yeah, no,
And they did the whole thing. They didn't want to do one section of that. They did the whole section, but they didn't look at the other section. So that's
Yeah.
probably what they'll do again.
Well, hopefully, I mean, if something guts the whole thing, you can't just arbitrarily do part of it, but if it's just one thing, like maybe there's an issue on the hydrofoil clause, well, we can leave the hydrofoil clause out of it for further discussion while we move forward with the rest, is kind of the way to look at it, so that we
I don't know if we can predict the future, but I think what we need to do is the board comfortable allowing us to understanding the concepts and the changes you've asked, update that and have it ready for the Board of Selectmen. We would ask everyone to try to be at that BOS meeting to support this, and then also to support a public hearing versus a town meeting, a public hearing. Is
The reason to.
Elman,
Yes,
Are you all-
we absolutely
if
need.
you need a motion, whatever, are you?
No, there's no motion here, it's just a call to action that, you know, that we're, if we're all support, if we're all in on this, then we need to support it all the way through. And if we don't represent at the critical stages along the way, then it will not, but it's successful.
But I think the minutes should have a motion saying that these been approved in principle, for, the approach that we said.
Yeah.
And that our official recommendation is that they choose the public hearing route, as opposed to the town meeting route.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Is there a
Well, then we need a formal motion.
Well, can I add one more thing? I know it's late, but I just to throw this out there is one thing, in the Vessels of Columbia Lake Ordinance, Article 2, on penalties and offenses. I know one of the big problems we have with, marine control is the lack of respect on the lake last year. And should there be something in here stating that marine patrol officers do have the authorization to assess a fine?
It's in the revised,
But it's not written that way.
well, there is, because it's been revised here, he read it,
Oh,
it's been separate from what you're.
Right.
It's all, we went through that, and they read the revised.
Let me speak to that because there will be a tweak to that when Mary and I, the DEP was concerned that it was, vague when it said, the selectmen can appoint marine patrol, officers that are provided by law.
Law.
We now changed it to talk to the statute, to, the town charter, which authorizes it. And then the state has two statutes, and I'm going to make reference to both statutes. Now, one statute allows them to appoint, the people that we normally appoint, and they go out there and they, do what they do, but they don't have enforcement action. They've got to come back in and get other people do it. There's another statute that does allow, for the appointment of marine patrol officers if they're appointed by the DEP commissioner as opposed to, by the town board of selectmen. And those people can go out and enforce the law. And so I'm changing it so that the selectmen can use either statute. Right now, they're using the one that doesn't require the commissioner to approve the appointments, and just give the people who are patrol officers the opportunity to go out and instruct and guide people and give out warnings. If we want to get stronger, then the selectmen could determine to go to DEP and say, basically, would you appoint these people under this statute to be, state authorized marine patrol, officers, and then they can give tickets. I think we can talk with Jerry.
A lot more than just get tickets.
Right.
They can carry weapons.
If they get the permit and so forth. And so you can ask Jim Santos this because he's got the history with it, but I think that the town hasn't gone that route before because again, they didn't want the DEP to have their hand in enforcement on the lake and nobody wanted pistols, potential. So, but we're at least putting it in there so that it's the selectmen's call. going forward, if the situation changes to the point where we truly need a police officer out there, they can use that statute to do it.
So, do we have a motion, and what was that motion again? Taking
I
notes.
move that LMAC, support the, changes in ordinances that have been proposed tonight and authorize the, standing subcommittee to, make the final, adjustments and, to provide it to the, first selectman with the recommendation of LMAC that the ordinances be amended as marked, and that, in the process of their determination, if they determine to go forward, that they do so by, proceeding, with public hearing and before making their decision, rather than proceeding with a, town meeting.
Do we have to say rather than, or just proceed with?
Let's just say proceed with a public, hearing followed by their, voting on the proposed changes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Do you have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You have all ayes. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. All right.
Mike, thank you.
Thank you all for
No, no.
coming out
Thank
tonight.
you, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
hey,
you for
hey,
your work,
Mary,
Henry and
you.
Mary.
Meeting, oh, by the way, meeting is adjourned.
You kind man one.
Yeah.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.
thank you, Mary. Thank you, Henry.
Zoom.